Hello, this is Martin Kove, aka John Kreese, and you're listening to 5105. And remember, sweep the leg.
VIBEtalks, more than just music.
Hey everybody, this is Giancarlo Aulino reporting for Vibe 105 with a Sports VIBEtalks segment where we're going to be doing something different today. We're going to be going into the world of film and television. To help me out, I'm happy to be joined by my guest. You've seen him on the Netflix series Cobra Kai. He plays Sensei John Kreese. He's Martin Kove. How you doing, Martin?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing great. Pleasure to have you on. It's an honor just seeing and binge watching that show. Back when it was on YouTube and even now on Netflix, like I saw a stat that 40 million households in the first 4 weeks, 73 million projected since its run. When you hear those kind of numbers, like what goes through your mind of just the popularity it still has today?
Well, the publicity department at Netflix is really vast. And I think they have like 10 people for every one person that, YouTube had. But YouTube was a great beginning because they allowed the writers creatively to do whatever they wanted. And this whole journey is contributed to the writers because the writing is so good. Plenty of Karate Kid sequels were pitched over the years since 1984, and theirs was real. They were writing for the kids so that the kids would see and then enjoy the gray writing, and then go back and look at the movies and see, pictures, movies they didn't even see before. They were too young. And then they find out why Johnny Lawrence is like Johnny Lawrence, why John Kreese is like he is, and why Ralph is kind of motivated from being a champion. So it's terrific, but we all know why, because it's just good writing. Like Robert Kamen wrote, he said, sweep the leg, no mercy, mercy is for the weak. All those lines are still said today, just like the force be with you, just like play it against sand, just like, frankly, Scarlet, I don't give a damn, I'd have gone with the wind. It comes from a good script, good material, and you carry on the lines all the way through history.
Yeah, I agree. Like it was really well written. Just even looking at season one, the backstories are able to go to with Johnny and Daniel, and looking at your character coming in at the end of season one, like what was your first meeting like with the producers and the writers? Like I'm sure, like you mentioned there, all the pitches over the years for this character, like what sold you on coming back to it?
Well, number one, sincerity. Number two, they were very persuasive. They knew everything about the characters. And every bit of homework that I had done and came with them and came with me to the first meeting, I had all these notes. And they had done those notes a year ago. They had done the flashback stuff that you saw in season 3. He wrote that stuff like a year before they met me, 2 years before they met me. And they had the same ideas I had. I wanted a little more of a vulnerable character. I didn't want a tough guy like in the movies. I wanted to play with some versatility. And they were right there. It took time for that to evolve. But they were right there with that information. And I said, wow. I want the audience to see why John Kreese is kind of crazy. But he's not a villain. He's just a misunderstood character. And they were there with flashbacks, and this is what we're planning. And, he wanted me to come in episode 10, season 1. I said, why can't I come in episode 6, season 1? And they said, no, you're going to set up season 2 with your entrance. So I said, fine. And it made sense. I didn't like it, but it made sense. And, ever since then, I've had lots of fun with these writers, and it's kind of, you don't have to change anything that they do. You can have opinions about it, but they write so well, and it's so gray. You can't get away with the white hats, black hats that we did back in the 80s. Kids are too hip. Kids are too sophisticated as theater goers, as television audiences. So I just kind of felt that I was being led down the right path as an actor, and agreed to do it.
Wow. And like just even looking at it, how you came in, I thought that was a really interesting thing, because during the season they kind of said that, oh, Kreese died, and you come in at the end, it's a big surprise for season 2. So looking back at that, what was it like being there again, I guess, with Billy Zabka at the end? Like, was it just where you picked up where you left off, or did you have to talk a little bit beforehand to try to get each other 30 years again into the characters?
You know, that for that scene, we didn't talk very much. We do for a lot of others. The scenes in the man's shelter, we talk about. The scenes in the diner, when he and I are talking later on in episode 1, season 2. But for that scene, we kept it fresh. And they knew I smoked cigars, so they wrote that in, you know? And it was just really interesting, you know? It was like the shot that's heard around the world. I walked to that line. I said, the real story's only just begun. And that was like the shot heard around the world, you know? And when I said that line, and then there was a cut, you'd hear from, in the first rehearsal, very first rehearsal, I was nervous. And you hear in Video Village on the far end of the dojo, you hear all the writers and the cameramen who waited for this iconic beast to say their words. And all of a sudden you hear, after I say that line, you hear, oh, you know, it's a sigh of, oh my God, he just was wonderful, you know? And I never think of him as iconic. I really don't. I don't think, and people use that word a lot because it's just, as an actor, you get lucky saying words of a good writer. And, you know, the people that did Darth Vader and people that, you know, really experienced wonderful writing, you know, Sorkin's writing on Newsroom, you know, they throw around that word, you know, icon. But to me, icon is Anthony Hopkins. Icon's Jack Nicholson. You know, icons are Sean Connery, you know. But hey, I'm not going to say, hey, no, you know, it's just it's one of those things where it was very fortuitous and also very surprising because I didn't watch all those other episodes. They weren't on yet. So when he says, we thought you were dead, and then I have a line in the same scene, so did a lot of people, kid. And I didn't direct that at meaning other individuals. I meant me. I thought I was dead, you know, and because he had a tough time, and for 30 years for 20 years he's had a tough time. So it was kind of a take like that, a very introspective take, and the rest was, you know, hand running on the wall.
Wow. For those just joining us here on Vibe 105, we're being joined by Martin Kove of the Netflix series Cobra Kai. Martin, you just brought up there, like just getting back into that scene and back into the character. In season 3, the flashback sequences I thought were really well done. A lot of people are kind of bringing it up like Godfather Part 2, how throughout the series you see the flashbacks and it's not just one episode. Is that what you envisioned for the character when they go back to Vietnam and you just see all the hardships he went through? Or was that something, you know, the writers brought up to you and it kind of surprised you a little bit?
No, I wanted that. From the get-go, I wanted it. I just didn't know at what point it would be most effective. You know, I wanted you to know about him in Vietnam. And that's what, somehow it had always rung true that that's where he would have gotten his abuse, you know, where he would have experienced abuse, you know, or where he would have gotten bullied. Somehow I didn't think he was the kind of character that would have gotten bullied, even though my son bullies him in episode 2, you know, season 3. I don't think he would have been bullied too much, this guy, you know, in high school and college. But in Vietnam, when you're up there in grade, that can happen. So a lot of, you know, fragging, a lot of stuff went on there. People with bad decision making. So I figured that's where it happened to him. And I brought in some notes again, and they were ahead of me, you know. And they built such great sets. Sets were just fantastic. And I was there. And it's quite spooky, really. You know, these kids come up and they say, Barrett did a wonderful job. He was great. He played me, younger me. And he got on with my son, and it just was terrific. It's almost kind of, as I said, spooky and metaphysical that they're playing someone you, but it's not you in some, crime drama. It's you in this iconic series as an iconic character, as a spiritual experience for everybody, why they love Karate Kid. It's a religion. So it's different than just, well, someone's playing me as a young kid in a gangster movie. It's not the case. And you've got to really know who you're choosing. And it was a very spiritual experience speaking to him, and he took it very seriously, and it would come up and say, am I doing a good job? Am I really, embellishing the essence of your character in a younger year? So it's all kind of haunting, It's just, we're very lucky. We have to just Billy and I talk about it. We're very lucky. It's a gift that keeps giving,
Yeah, and just looking at the character, does that make you want to ramp up the intensity, or do you think this is going to be a little bit where it might be a calming presence going forward with Kreese?
You have to wrap up the intensity. I mean, you really do. It's like you can't just bark at the students anymore in the new seasons. You've got to have conspiratorial ideas, and the writers are good at writing that. They backhand write it, and you don't even know what you're going to come up with in episode 4 when you're doing episode 2, and all of a sudden, you're Adolf Eichmann, and you thought you were a rabbi. You know what I mean? So it's quite interesting, and I really, we're just lucky that they're writing this and that they're still fascinated with the series, because I talk to them and they're just as fascinating now. So many times you go into a TV series, I've done about 5, and you go into a TV series where in about the 5th season, it gets old. It just gets old. The showrunners change, the writers change. Somehow it becomes, someone's lost their spark from the first 4 seasons, and it always happens in the 5th. And I saw it happen to a terrific little series on Netflix also, this thing called Rake. I loved it, 4 seasons, loved it. It was about an irreverent attorney that was about as like Johnny Lawrence as you could imagine, but he was an attorney. And then it kind of fell down, and I really, but the actor was brilliant. It's just that the material does fall. And I guess you try to avoid that. And I don't think we're there yet at all. But, when it's good work, you'll find it easy as the actor and comfortable to do it,
And does it make it seem fresher? Because there's 10 episodes, 30 minutes long, compared to a movie where you have to put everything all together. Do you think this long form storytelling is something where maybe in the future we'll see a lot of movies from the past bring that nostalgia into a long form series?
It's a good question. Long form series in cinema, interesting. I think anthological stories for cinema. I mean, you do it now on Netflix. They do it left and right. And, there are so many movies that were pitched as movies. There were so many shows on Netflix that were pitched as movies. I'm a big Western fan. And I remember a terrific picture called Godless, 7 parts, Jeff Daniels. So well written, very violent, but so well written. And that was originally a movie. And the guy just couldn't get his financing, so he broke it down into 7 parts. And it was terrific. And it worked out really well. If it was a movie, it might have been 2.5 hours in the theater. It might have just been a bit much because it was a tough story. And I don't know, I certainly miss the big screen. And I need, I have a big screen. I have a big screen. And I watch all the movies. My favorite is The Wild Bunch, but I watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and I watch Casablanca, my favorite movie of all time. And I stay tuned to what it was like experiencing the mystique of cinema in a big room on a big screen when you'd look up and there was Jack Nicholson smiling at you, you know, in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you know. I mean, you cannot, I don't think you can ever replace those times, the cinematic experience. But you could have a 65-inch screen right here, and, you know, I can almost replace the event, but I don't think we'll ever replace going to the theater and having a cinematic experience.
Yeah, I agree. That's interesting too, because Netflix does, like you mentioned, a lot of movies pitch and then they turn into shows. And even in this one, like Cobra Kai, a lot of physical scenes, 15-minute fight scenes also in season 2. You were involved in one in season 3, big one. You still showed that at your age, you can still take more than one guy. So what was that physical preparation like for a role, for even a scene like that with Ralph and Billy?
Well, Hero is Hero and Ken and Hero's wife, a brilliant stunt coordinators. They also do Stranger Things. So they've been up for Emmys many times. We work all season long on a major fight. So if there's that fight at the end, which comes in episode 10, we're on it every week, 3 times a week. And you just try to, so for 3 months, you're just trying to perfect going through a window, you know, doing all the stuff that we did in that. That was a big fight. Yeah. I mean, that fight started in the other room, all the way through the corridor, into the dojo, out the careening window, and then into the street, you know. And when they told me that, I said, wow. I said, that sounds really interesting. Let's go for it. You know? And we had a fun, it was tough, but we had a good time. And nobody got hurt, really. I mean, I got cut up when I was walking on the glass outside because he had to be without shoes because he was in the dojo. So you get cut up. But those stunt people, for that scene, that fight in the school, that fight in the house, it's brilliant. They do that shit in 2 days, man. They do that in days. And they're brilliant. They slide a stunt woman or stunt man in, and the Steadicam goes that way, and then they slide them out, and the real actor comes in to do the simpler stuff. Wow. They're brilliant.
Yeah, that was amazing to see. Like what you're describing. Wow, that's 2 days. Like, was there a long time that you have to prepare for that, or is it just like a week? Yeah.
Theirs was 2 days of both fights. I mean, they had so many kids in the school, and they had that backup, you know, Steadicam shot. And you had, what's his name, Stingray, you know, comes out of that office and then hits one kid and hits another, you know, classic stuff. And it's just, you know, I don't know who thought of those moments, but I'm pretty sure it was Hero. And, you know, he's such a good stunt coordinator, and, you know, the actor wants to participate and they all look good. Yeah. And our stuff was, I mean, you can't really measure it. Was it 2 days? I would say it was more, probably, if you did collectively, because we did it, you know, in collectively in 2 days. But, you know, you just imagine these 3 characters emotionally have drawn the line, and it's time to finish the business. You know, I mean, we've been watching them for 35 years, wondering when they're going to kick each other's ass. And then it still goes on. We'll settle it up in the tournament. You know, it's great stuff.
Once again, for those just joining us here on Vibe 105, we're being joined by Martin Kove of the Netflix series Cobra Kai. Martin, just even getting back in your character, like you're talking about that, like that scene, and 35 years later, everyone's wondering when they're going to finally draw that line. And do you try to keep away from the other cast members before you're getting into a scene to get into Kreese mode, or are you talking with them before the scene to try and say, okay, I'm going to do this and be prepared to play off me when I get this intense?
Yeah, but, you know, Billy and I have such a history of working together that there's such a history read into the scenes. Whether I have a scene with him at the bar or I have a scene with him in the dojo, it's almost like it's cheating, because there's such a history read into us that whatever we do is acceptable. and interesting because we have 35 years of history. I love Johnny Lawrence, but I don't love him more than I love the integrity of Cobra Kai. So he violated that, so I had to take the dojo. And I keep trying to get him back. And, you know, that scene where I walk with that collar up and the jacket with the sunglasses, and I say in the park in Eagle Fang, I said, you still can come back, Johnny. You know, I still tell him. And I'm always trying to bring him back on my side because he's my best student of all time. And the fact that I almost kill him, you know, it's just part of the course. He's violating the integrity of something I live for, you know? And so it's tricky. Working with other people, I mean, Amanda is great. Working with Ralph is good too because, you know, he throws that. We don't have a lot of scenes together, but the scenes in the dojo where we do they're great. The scene in his garden, that time he finds me in his garden, and I say, what, you know, what is this? What do I say? I said, you teaching gardening here? You know, I think are you teaching karate or are you teaching gardening? You know, it's just, he just has no problem setting off the conversation right away, making an enemy. And so with Amanda, it's great because I love that slap scene. You know, I really love that. I like her being a female warrior. John Kreese likes that. And he really respects her. He kind of respects a little bit of Daniel because he's got a wife that's a warrior, you know. But you got to be careful where the lines go about being lascivious, you know. You got to be careful. But I haven't seen, you know, I haven't seen her coming up down the line, and, you know, it's really, it's terrific. She's a terrific actress, and all of them are good. You know, they're all good. There isn't one actor there that violates the truth. They've been cast well.
Yeah, and I like the references you make, like regards to Mr. Miyagi, or there's no such thing as a bad student, and then after it just sets off Daniel's character. Do you think that's part of what makes Kreese that misunderstood character, that people think he's a villain, but really he's misunderstood?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there are no bad students, just bad teachers. And you follow Miyagi, so, you know, maybe you ought to try something else, you know. You know, because Miyagi was a little soft, you know. It's not about winning a point in a tournament. It's about making sure, according to John Kreese, that opponent who attacks you on the street doesn't get up. Because if he gets up, he'll come at you from your back or moments later or a day later, you know, so you got to knock him out, finish him so he knows who's boss. It's not a matter of making points in the dojo. It really isn't, or making points in the tournament. You know, it's about making points in the street when it's really dangerous. He says it many times, mercy is for the weak. Here and on the streets, somebody confronts you, they are the enemy. The enemy deserves no mercy. And that he really means in real life. He doesn't mean the dojo. You know, he'll carry it out in the dojo as practice or in the tournament, but I'm talking about real life. Yeah. That's the difference between Ralph and Billy now and my character.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love those scenes. Once again, for those who are joining us here on Vibe 105, we're being joined by Martin Kove. Martin, before we wrap up here, you and your career, you know, I'm sure as an actor, you go through a lot of trials, tribulations, you go audition for a scene. Sometimes you don't get it. For some of the actors that might be listening to this right now, what advice would you give to them if they're going through something similar?
Well, I give the same advice to my son. He's terrific and he's a wonderful actor. We've done about 6 projects together. And, you know, I tell him the same thing. I said, you have to remember that if they don't hire you, whoever they are, and it's been a tough year. It's been a really minimal project year, minimal production. If they don't hire you, it's their mistake. And you got to feel that way. And all you can do, I mean, honestly, 6-8 months, I just perfected, I at home worked on projects, you know, not going getting paid. There was nothing happening. But actually reading scripts, and I want to do a Western. I really want to do a Western with my son. And I kept going through material, trying to find that really good, the father's the gunfighter, the son wants to take up, can't understand why this father doesn't pick up his gun anymore. He's a weakling, he's a real impossible character and used to be a great gunfighter. And I'm trying to find in all these scripts, which is what I do so I don't get bored during this insanity, is I try to find a good reason why that the society would accept it. Years ago, we see a gunfighter and the brother is a gunfighter and the younger brother wants to be just like him, and then he has to pick up the gun when the mother is killed and stereotype stuff. So for me, it's quite challenging to try to find a really good reason why in society, why a brother or a father would pick up his gun in a Western. What and how people nowadays would accept that, and maybe it's a current event problem. It's probably something that's far more sophisticated than it was in Shane, or there was in, Once Upon a Time in the West. We always have the stereotypical guy coming back who doesn't want to pick up his gun, the gunfighter with Gregory Peck. Great, similar story. So I'm trying to find that in all the readings, and that's what I do. And for young actors, read as much as you can. Pick up scenes and do it. I was always making the mistake that I loved the role 20 years ago. I loved the role. I didn't think the script was that good, but if I loved the role, I thought I could make the movie better by my performance. Doesn't work. If you got a script that's problematic, 9 out of 10 times as good a job as you're doing in that role, don't be swayed, because it's not going to make the movie any better. You do 5 lines in Raiders of the Lost Ark, they remember you more for your next job than if you did the lead in some action picture that never got a theatrical, and you played the lead in.
That's excellent advice. Before we wrap up here and let you go, Martin, how can we follow you on social media?
MartinKove.com. And you'll have fun. There's a lot of fun pictures there. Or is it Marty Kove? MartyKove.com or MartinKove.com. But it's really a lot of fun, and there's a lot of fun pictures from different projects, and you can see my son there. And Jesse Kove, he's got a great thing to follow too. So, yeah, nice talking to you.
I appreciate you sharing the time and coming on Vibe 105 to talk all things Cobra Kai with me, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
That was Martin Kove of the Netflix series Cobra Kai. Now we're going to send it back to the studio for more programming right here on Vibe 105.